Prison Project are the people who fell in love with themselves and the Enneagram while they were incarcerated. And we have an ambassador advisory board that helps to direct the project and what's important and where we need to be heading. And we have one representative today. Would you please help me welcome Jeff Limon? So before we start, first of all, thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
We have a film that we like to play. This film was made in 2016 when Jeff was still incarcerated.
My name is Jeff. I'm in type 1.
You might want to turn and see.
In my early 20s, I had my life all planned out, and I was on a sort of a route to what I perceived was going to be my perfect life. At have everything all set by 28. And when I dropped out of graduate school and things just didn't go as planned, and I didn't have that perfect life, I became very, very depressed and reached for something that I believed could make me feel perfect again, that could give me that lift that I used to get through accolades and kudos and accomplishments that I no longer had. And so unfortunately I reached for crystal meth, and I very quickly became a drug addict. And drugs have always been something that I was very, highly against, being raised that way. But it was just a lot easier to try to feel better about myself by taking drugs rather than doing the hard work. And before too long, I became a full-on meth addict. And when that took a toll on my family, and I no longer had my nice little family, I sat there thinking, how am I going to support my habit? I'm a drug addict. My wife left me. I'm in this house all alone. So what I did was I took everything that I didn't like about drug dealers, and the bit of the reformer in me, I wanted to reform the profession of drug dealing. I wanted to revolutionize it. I wanted to be the conscientious drug dealer, so to speak. Everything that I didn't like about having to pick up drugs, being put on hold forever, having to go somewhere and wait for my connect to meet me. I would never ever do that. I would be always punctual in serving up someone. Having to pick up some drugs that weren't very good quality, I always made sure I had the best quality. I was always organized. If I'm going to be a drug dealer, I'm going to do it right. I'm going to do it in a way that people would want to do repeat business with me. One of the things that I used to be made fun of is that I'd actually check IDs of the people that I'd serve up, because if I was going to break the law, I was going to do it properly. I now know that I have perfectionistic tendencies, and that's what drives a lot of my behavior, and that's what actually led me to grab a substance that made me feel perfect, so to speak, again. And over the last few months, I've been able to actually accept imperfection. It's funny because when I was trying to determine my type as a type 1, I hesitated I didn't want to gravitate towards that, because I thought that I'm not perfect. There's so many things about me that aren't perfect. I'm not a perfectionist, but then there's that underlying desire to be perfect. And I think that's the rub right there. If someone's not saying cadence correctly, or if somebody's not in step, or if they're not even sounding off of that, I can actually feel it right here, boiling up. It's just a real challenge to confront stupidity, I guess you could say. I was one of those kids that actually put his toys away. I mean, I don't remember my parents ever having to yell at me about cleaning up after myself or putting things away and whatnot. And there was always a very meticulous order to things, how I did it. I just like to do it the right way. And that just carried over into I've always been, even as a child, when things weren't done according to how I thought they should be done, it just really upset me. I'm a lot kinder to myself now. What I've realized with the Enneagram is those tendencies to critique and seek out that perfection is what's messed me up. And I do see the value in having an inner critic, but I just don't listen to him as stringently as I used to. The Enneagram has helped me to recognize those patterns and those repeat behaviors that have led me back here. So I'm hoping to continue that when I get out and it'll definitely be something that I look forward to doing. It's just something that I practice already here in the barracks, and it's just phenomenal just how much it's just taken a burden off me. I've forgiven myself for what I've done and recognize that not necessarily cop out like, oh, it was my personality, I was meant to do that, or I couldn't help myself, but in a sense I couldn't. And having this awareness now allows me to have a softer heart and less critical towards me. Hopefully that'll give me an opportunity to do better in my life and not come back.
So how is it for you to watch that film?
That was filmed 4 years ago, and I don't even recognize that person anymore. I meet a lot of people through the Enneagram, and they said, "Oh, you're Jeff from the video. You're Jeff from the video. You're Jeff from the video." And so there's Instagram famous, and then now that I know what it's like to be Enneagram famous, and that's the first time I've watched that video. It was really difficult for me, just seeing myself in stripes again. It was just I had a visceral reaction to it, and I don't recognize that person anymore. I can't believe some of the stuff that came out of my mouth.
Because we do the work together, I am curious. What is that visceral reaction that you're experiencing, and why do you think that is for you?
It's just I'm really happy about how far I've come, and just to see. That was only 4 years ago,
Right.
but just the difference in my life today than 4 or 5 years ago is just amazing. I can't put it in any other way. It's phenomenal how drastic my life has changed, and it's a good visceral reaction. At the same time, I'm a little embarrassed about some of the things I said. Not to be too critical of myself.
I'm going to pause you there before you go down that road, because I know that road for us. So Jeff, because a lot of people don't know your background, and I'm wondering, can you take us back to how is it that you got in so much trouble with yourself? What was going on for you?
So in my early 20s, I really liked myself. I thought I was going to conduct meaningful research and bring mental health services to an underserved population, Asian American clientele in California. I thought I was going to do really meaningful behavioral medicine research. I was in a very prestigious doctoral program in clinical psychology. And it was just a real shock for me to go from being a big fish in a small pool to just being another fish in graduate school. And I did it well for the first couple years in graduate school. But around my third year, when it came time to propose my thesis, it was taking me 2 years to work on something, and I was convinced it wasn't going to be good enough, that I wasn't going to have something revolutionary or breaking or something groundbreaking. I didn't think it would I basically thought I was going to be found out to be a fraud in graduate school. So after 4 years in my doctoral program, I disappeared and dropped out. When that happened, there was just the inner critic in me just went on overdrive, and just a lot of self-loathing, a lot of punishment, a lot of beating up myself for not following through on my end of the bargain. I went to grad school with great things expected of me, and I failed. And unfortunately, when I moved back to California, I was exposed to a substance that made me feel as good as I did when I was still on top of the world. And that was one of the most horrible substances you could possibly put in your body, and that was crystal meth. It flipped on all the switches in my brain, and just made me feel like Superman again. And I did that for 17 years. No matter how much I tried to stop, I didn't. It just led me in really bad places.
Can I pause you there?
Sure.
Because, 91% of the students that we serve are in for drug-related offenses. Either they're using or they're dealing in order to cover a habit or to try to have sales for something else. And so it's really, really common. And we've been forced in this project to learn a lot about addiction. And the person whose approach we resonated with so significantly is Dr. Gabor Mate, and some of you know him. And Gabor Mate's approach is a compassionate one to addiction. And he says that the addiction is really not the problem. The addiction is an addict's attempt to solve a problem, and that problem started in childhood. So I want to pause there because I think it's important to go back even further if you can. Mm-hmm. And I know you're familiar with Gabor Mate, and this question is that what happened when you were young? Because you had so much personality going on, right? So much drive, and I know that, accomplishing and doing things. Not just threes do that, ones also. So what happened for you when you were small?
I was a child of nice middle-class immigrant Filipino parents that built a life for themselves in the United States. My father was in the United States Navy for 20 years. My mother's Filipino Catholic, so you could kind of see the seeds of a type 1 right there, that combination. And I learned early on the way to have things smooth in my life and at home was just to be good and to do the right thing and just be low maintenance and just to, basically, I mean, I can't put it any other way than to be good. I was convinced that I had a good childhood. I got everything that I needed and even some of what I wanted. But Gabor begs to differ, I guess. But
well, is it Gabor, or do you see that this is the thing? I think this is the really hard thing, particularly in an IEA crowd, right? You don't have to have a really shitty childhood to have a personality. Just any old normal dysfunction will do, like not getting all of your needs met. And I like how you say that. Like I even got some of what I needed, right? What I wanted, excuse me. That there's an experiment called the Still Face Mommy experiment. Some of you have seen it. You can Google it, where a mother and her child, clearly an attached relationship, are having an exchange, a serve and return, where the mommy says something and the baby responds, and the mommy points and the baby points, and they clearly have a connection. And then the mother turns away and she turns back and she is still-faced. And she doesn't react. She just doesn't make any expression. And within 30 seconds, the baby is agitated enough to be screeching and squirming to get out of her chair and out of this dynamic. So imagine if you just, as an ongoing thing, don't get your needs responded to. Now we have a cell phone generation. You could have a nursing mother who's checked out on her phone, right? This relationship has been interrupted. And sometimes it's just interrupted by hardworking parents or from somebody who loves me but isn't there, literally. So, you don't have to throw your parents under the bus to also not have a totally perfect childhood. So what comes up for you when you think about that and starting to think about why was crystal meth such a hit for you?
It filled. So yeah, I mean, my parents were good providers, but I wasn't very close with them. And what I learned in my late adolescence and early 20s, when I started getting recognition from my parents is when I started excelling at university and just doing really well. When I got accepted to graduate school, and I was going to get my PhD, that's when the love and acknowledgement from them really started to come. Wow, this is kind of, I never thought this much about this. And when I didn't live up to my end of the bargain and finish my doctorate, that was the hardest thing in the world, to go back home with my tail between my legs and tell my mom and dad I didn't finish my doctorate. And just their reaction alone is probably what helped to drive me towards my addiction. And this is kind of...
Take a breath, Jeff.
Zut alors, il pleut. This is weird.
This is good.
This is it.
So just take a breath. And thank you for your presence. What's happening for you? What are you connecting?
I've given this talk like 15 or 20 times already, and this is the first time I've cried.
What that shows me is that you have cultivated enough presence to look at this next layer, that you're really available to yourself. And it's okay. Can you say what's touching you?
Thank you all for listening. I really appreciate you being here. This is tripping me out right now. God,
There's something
15 times I've given this talk, and
Jeff, look at, it's perfect.
is it?
Yeah, because this is the work. Nobody wants to come into a room about Prison Project and see a scripted speech. Everybody wants to see, can you keep it real, which is what we do inside, right? And it seems to me that what caught in your throat was when you realized there's something about the idea that you had of yourself as being the good kid who was going to go do the thing that was going to make my parents proud of me. And when that was like a disconnect between the idea you had of yourself and the reality that you found yourself in.
Yeah.
And what happened there?
Right now, it's I'm speechless right now. I apologize. That's kind of like an epiphany I never had, and y'all witnessed something in real time, and that's the work right there, right? This is something I have to think about. Wow, I had to travel halfway around the world to realize that.
Well, at least you didn't have to go back to prison,
Yeah.
right? You didn't have to do that.
In a nutshell, not wanting to let my parents down fueled 17 years of crystal meth addiction. And wow, I thought I did work. I mean, I thought I did work before, but just right now realizing that it's just I feel kind of raw and open right now.
You know what that shows me, Jeff, is how much you care about your parents and how much you cherish that relationship, and how as type 1s, the thing we really, really, really don't ever want to do is disappoint somebody that we love and care about.
That's right.
And it's almost intolerable. And so for you to say it's really weird, we always use this language to sort of describe this state of being when the personality starts to fall away and you're just left with something different than you knew, right? That's really beautiful. So when you found yourself there and you started crystal meth, can you tell us how long were you using?
I started crystal meth when I was still in my last years of graduate school, and I used for 17 years until 2013. I'd like to one thing I'd like to say is that prior to learning about the Enneagram, I did residential treatment for drug addiction. I did outpatient treatment for drug addiction. I saw a psychologist. I was under the care of a psychiatrist taking antidepressants. I did a faith-based recovery program. I did an in-custody regimented correctional program. I made promises to my daughters to quit. I made promises to my family. My promises to my ex-wife, and nothing worked. I still no matter through the bad things that happened while in my addiction. In 2013, there was in my garage. There was we had a gunfight in my garage in a very small space. There were gunshots everywhere. I could have died, and I still used. Basically, I tried everything to quit, and nothing worked for 17 years.
I want to highlight that, first of all, thank you for laying all that out for us. I want to highlight how important it is that you shared that, because we know that our personality is our first addiction. Our personality is like our first drug of choice, and there's a dopamine hit wired right into our type structure. When I'm stressed, I organize my silverware, or get some dopamine going by getting a project right, something like that. We all want to feel better. And when you couldn't feel better by doing your PhD program, there's some impulse in you that says that still had a drive to make that anxiety go away. And so the impulse to use is going to sort of take the edge off of that, but it's temporary. And so it requires you to keep going back and doing it again and again. So can you say how long were you in custody for?
So over the course of my criminality and addiction, I probably lost about 6 years of my life to incarceration on various prison and county jail terms. This last time I was incarcerated for about 1 year, at which time I was exposed to the Enneagram. I was introduced to the Enneagram. That was about 4.5 years ago.
And we have just about 5 minutes, just so you know about the time. And I'm wondering if you could say, what was your general experience, and generally the experience of seeing the Enneagram introduced? Because you were in the facility where we first programmed.
Yes. So my first exposure to the Enneagram, it wasn't very promising. I saw the book, and my graduate school training kicked in. I wanted to see more empirical research done on it. I wanted to hear more about the validity and the reliability of the Enneagram. And but something amazing happened, and that was when I did finally open my mind and become open to the Enneagram. Darned if I didn't see 200 inmates on their bunks in the barracks reading a college-level text, and that's just unheard of in jail and in prison. I'll see people read James Patterson, I'll see people read the Bible, but never a university-level text, and everybody just so thrilled and wanting to know more about themselves and why they were there, or why we were there, rather. And darned if I did not see inmates across different races or ethnic groups help each other and learn about themselves together, and that's just unheard of. I've never seen that.
The book we use is The Wisdom of the Enneagram by Don Riso and Wes Hudson. And can you say, how did learning the Enneagram make a cultural difference inside?
In the barracks?
Yeah.
Oh, it was a whole new thing. It was, like I said, there was cooperation and camaraderie across races. And there wasn't this usual prison yard BS where learning about yourself or trying to do something good for yourself was looked down upon. Everyone was just like encouraging each other to learn about ourselves and to change our lives. And honestly, I've never seen that before. It was just amazing to me.
Jeff, when were you released?
I was released 3.5 years ago. December 2015.
And can you tell us about what you're doing in your life today?
I'm crushing it, really. I'm killing it. Really.
Yes, you are.
Thank you. I embrace my type 1 in a healthy fashion, and I started a nice humble position when I got out, and I've worked my way all the way to the top of a very, very meaningful position in my company of upper management, and I love it. That wouldn't have been possible if I didn't receive the love and support that I do from this program. I feel like I'd be remiss if I didn't say that the Enneagram and learning about ourselves as inmates is valuable, but it's not only the message, but it's the messenger that delivers it, and EPP is that messenger that I belong to a tribe now that I never had this connection before, and it's allowed me to be off the meth for 5.5 years. It's allowed me to have the longest time out of incarceration that I've ever had since I've started going in, and it's opened up my heart. I mean, I fell in love with myself 5 years ago, and it's just an ongoing love affair. I'm loving myself right now. And I fell in love 5 times this weekend, and I never thought that'd be possible again. And it's all thanks to this program.
Jeff, thank you for being here.
Thank you.